Hello there, my name is Dan, and over the last few years I've been working on a partial self-sufficiency project here in Essex, UK. The main purpose of my channel is to show people how to grow their own fruit and vegetables no matter what size garden, allotment or growing space they do indeed have. So if you like my work, please feel free to like and share, and if you'd like to know of any other videos I've got coming up, please feel free to subscribe. So running a melon project this year, I'm growing a variety of melons of which are behind me. So what I'm going to do is link some videos down below of this project and indeed of other years when I've grown melons before. So growing melons in a climate such as the UK can present some challenges. So what I'm going to do first is show you the varieties I'm growing. We will start over here with the savoury melons. So these are bitter melons, otherwise known as bitter gourd. Quite a curiosity, and they're very much used in Southeast Asian cuisine, and they're said to have beneficial properties for those who have diabetes. So you're not to eat these upon my say so. You need to do your own research, but very much worth looking into, and they're also good fun to grow and grow very well here in the UK. So this one down here is now starting to make a good size. You can see they are interesting to look at. You can see a young fruitlet here. So when growing these, you may be surprised just how many fruits you get off of each individual vine. The majority of the fruits tend to be ready around late September into October here in the UK. Okay, sweet melon time. We will start down here with Blacktail Mountain watermelon. So you can see this starting to make some size here. If I put my hand next to that, you could see how big that one is there. There is also one here, a less mature one here. So it's looking at the moment I'm going to get about 3 watermelons, so I'm happy with that. Next up is Petit Gris, one there, one here. So we're looking at about 2 Petit Gris. In fact, I think this is a Petit Gris, so I was looking at about 3 at the moment. Next up we have sweet granite. Got one here, one here, one here, and one here. So 4. Looking at those. Next up is 5 desserts. One here, one here. So I found about 2 of those. So with regards to my melon count, there's probably a lot more there than I'm thinking. I can also see some little smaller ones. So you can see I've grown them all together, okay? It would have been ideal had I tied them up like this and put supports down to hang them up in. But that didn't happen. But you can't do everything, but so far so good. I'm happy with how they are coming out. Now with regards to melons, they like temperatures of about 20 to 35 degrees C, which is about 68 to 95 degrees Fahrenheit. So that can be challenging to achieve in a climate such as the UK. So one way I achieve this is by growing them in a polytunnel. Now if you don't have a polytunnel, you could always grow them in a cold frame, or if you've got to grow them outside, you could always grow them up against a south-facing wall or fence for the extra microclimate. Now I'm going to link a video down below of some watermelons that were actually grown for a supermarket by a commercial grower in the year 2014, I believe. So very, very interesting indeed to look at that one. And I've also seen a friend of mine grow watermelons outside here in the UK. Granted, it was in the southeast though, and we can get some of the most favourable weather by UK standards for growing melons here in the UK, but it can be done. But the key to growing watermelons, or melons in general, okay, is microclimate. They need the warmth, and that includes warm roots. So how do I achieve warm roots? Well, you can see that I've got these black plastic bags down here, and what happens is when the polytunnel warms up, these hold the heat, and the heat helps to radiate down into the roots, and that's very, very important because melons do like warm roots. Other ways this can be achieved, I have heard of people actually putting fresh horse manure into the ground so that it warms up and helps to keep the roots warm. I've never tried this one. Another technique you can use is when you water them with tepid water. Okay, that way you won't shock them. Now, these methods are most important earlier in the year when the weather is not necessarily as warm, but you could try these at this time of year as well, and I'd certainly advise leaving the membrane down, the dark membrane, in order to just keep that heat going. And you could also put some straw under as well, and this would help with regards to holding the heat, and also you will keep the melons off of the dirt, which could help to prevent rotting, so that could be beneficial as well. Now, what soil do melons like to grow in? Now, they like sandy loam, okay, so the soil here is sandy, and they also like well draining soil. So if you are living in an area of clay soil, it may not be that wise to grow them in the ground there. Now, you could add some additional sand to make it more loamy. You could look into that one. But another thing you could do is choose to grow them in containers. Now, I have grown melons in containers before with success, and you'll find some of those videos down below, so you can look at those if indeed you wish. So melons like a pH of about 6 to 6.5. It's different for bitter melons, we'll go into that later, but with regards to the sweet melons, 6 to 6.5 is ideal. A question that I sometimes get asked, and indeed something I looked into myself, is with regards to fruit setting on melon plants. So if your pH is not between 6 and 6.5, that could account for why your plant is not setting fruit. So you can look into that one if indeed you wish to. So if your pH isn't correct for growing melons, your plants could be a pale colour. The green might not be as rich as what you can see I've got here. They may even appear slightly yellow. Okay, so we're going to discuss pollination. So there are ways that I achieve this in here, and one way is I leave the door open of the polytunnel so that pollinating insects can come in and out. And I've noticed hoverflies in here and flies, and I dare say bees have been in here as well. Now, there's a way you can do this yourself, and what you do is you take a male flower and you break that off and you rub the pollen on a female flower, and this can help with pollination. I'll try and show you an example now. So this here is a male flower, and that's identified by the fact that there's no little fruitlet behind the flower. So this is a female flower, and what you do is you just proceed to rub the pollen like this onto it, and that should help with pollination. So bitter melons, they like a pH of about 5.5 to 6.7. Now, with regards to my project here, I've grown them under the same conditions as I have the sweet melons. Now, with regards to feeding, you can feed with a high potash feed. So follow the instructions on the feed that you're using. You can also make your own out of comfrey tea. So these are beneficial things that you can do as well. I wouldn't recommend you using a feed high in nitrogen, because nitrogen can cause excessive leaf growth, which is not what you want. You want plenty of fruits, which would be brought on by a higher potassium feed, as opposed to plenty of greenery, which would be brought on by a high nitrogen feed. So with regards to feeding, I would start doing that once the fruit starts to swell. So when the fruit gets to about this size. And then when the vine starts to die back, then stop the feed. Now I'm giving these a heavy watering 2 or 3 times a week, and I'll reduce this to 1 or 2 times a week when the vines start to die back and the fruit starts to ripen. This can help to make them sweeter. So, had some quite warm temperatures, okay, and had I left the door open in this polytunnel, would have got over 40 degrees C in here. So that's too high for melons, so you really do not want them to exceed 35 degrees C if you can help it. Okay, so with regards to ground preparation for growing melons, I'll be straight up with you, I didn't really prepare the ground that much here, okay? I put some granular feed in. You can watch the video when I did that and see what I did, but I didn't prepare the ground with manure or anything like that. So a good thing to do in the area you're going to be growing melons, or you want to grow melons, would be the autumn before you grow the melons there, you could put something like some well-rotted horse manure in there. That can be beneficial. You don't want to be using something like chicken manure, okay, because chicken manure is high in nitrogen, and once again you don't want that, and horse manure only has moderate amounts of nitrogen, not too much. So hopefully this will help you to grow some lovely, beautiful, sweet melons the following year. What should I have done differently? Well, you can see I planted them too close together. Now, I knew this was going to happen. You can see the varieties have all grown in amongst each other, and it's what one could describe as a mishmash, but I expected that to happen. One can't do everything, and that's how it is, but you can see the crops have still been good so far. So ideally you want them the plants about 18 inches apart, a foot and a half, maybe even more, because you can see just how big the vines can get. Of course, if you're tying them up, like you can see or hopefully see the bitter melon plants over there, then that's slightly different, but ideally a foot and a half apart. Now, if you get your spacing correct, and particularly if you're growing different varieties, you can of course see when certain vines are dying back, when you need to stop feeding certain varieties, when you need to stop watering, and indeed when some are ready to discard. But of course, the way I've done it, that's not really that possible. Now, it's important to keep the area free of weeds. Weed it before you put the plants in, and keep it weeded. You can see I haven't done that, okay? That's just a thing I haven't done. But weed it if you can, and you don't want to be having, you know, things like tomato plants growing in amongst it, okay? Now, when growing melons in the UK and similar climates, it's important to remember that they're not a sure thing, okay? The chances of success with something like melons is less likely than what it would be with something like spinach, okay? That's just how it is. But with that being said, it can be good fun to grow melons, and it's really satisfying when you do get a crop, okay? I remember that a few years ago when I did that. Okay, so you can really look into melon growing. This video is not exhaustive. There's loads that you can look into. So there we go. If you like my work, please feel free to like, share and subscribe, and you can always check me out on Dan_Home Gardens on Instagram if indeed you are interested. Thank you for viewing. See you next time.